Hey guys, it's Peter, and I'm back. I'm out of the traffic. If you watch my last two videos, I was stuck for 5 hours in the ice storm last night. It took me about six and a half hours. I finally got home, safe and in bed. I was so thankful. On my way home, I saw, like, I am not lying to you guys, 30 like horrible accidents. A FedEx truck was turned over and twisted on the interstate. There were no police around. There was like one lane going by. People were like going super fast because they were so tired of being stuck in traffic. I'm like, you guys need to settle down, like, and slow down so we all get home safely. All the exits were turned off or closed off because what was happening was people were like going up the ramps and then getting stuck. And I'm like, oh my God. And so then when I got home, we live in like a gated area and there's like this little incline. And I mean like little, okay? Like it's nothing, right? I literally started going up this incline and I like swooped down the other side and I was like, how am I'm like literally I can see my house. How am I not going to be able to get home, you know? My nose is driving me crazy. I've had a cold all morning. Anyway, and so then I had to go like 2 different ways in. I tried another street, same thing happened. Tried another, there's like, you can go, there are like back ways into our community. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to be able to get home. So anyway, I finally got home and got in bed about 6 o'clock in the morning. It was like, and I left last night to come home at like 11:45. So I was like, this is ridiculous, okay? But I made it safe, and I'm really happy that I made it safe, and I hope that everybody else did too. It was really kind of cool to see people get out of their cars and like checking on each other, making sure that everybody was okay. A lot of people were falling asleep on the road, and you know, people, instead of just honking and going crazy, people were going up to their car and being like knocking on the windows and being like, we're moving again and stuff like that. It was really nice. Like everybody was very considerate of each other, and I just think that like that's such a cool world. Like why can't we live like that, where we're just considerate of other people? And you know, anyway, so that was cool. And I was gonna do a whole video today where I read this blog post, maybe I'll find it on here and read it, where I talk about my sobriety. I'm gonna look it up really quick while we're talking, but Joanna Spicer, my new favorite YouTuber, is texting me. We're texting back and forth. Have you guys seen her channel? Oh my God, I am like totally obsessed with Joanna Spicer. She is so funny and so real. I love her so much. So I'm looking this up right now. It was on one of my old blogs. We'll see if it comes up. Well, no, because I didn't spell it right. How do you not, Peter, Monn, how do you not spell your own name right? 18 Degrees of Insanity. Are you ready? Revisited, I said. Okay, so I'll read this to you guys in just a second, but I get so many questions about my career and like how to get into the career of like counseling or life coaching and those kinds of things. And I want to make it very, very clear. I'm a life coach and a counselor today. I was a counselor and a therapist for many, many years. I'm not. And it was a very decisive move that I made. And it was kind of because, well, I'll explain that in a second. So let me explain my career to you guys and how I got where I'm at and all that kind of stuff. Because so many people ask about it. And I thought, well, you know, I've never really addressed it in a video because I kind of try not to talk about those things. But like bring my personal life into it. It's interesting. All of my clients like watch my channel and they love it and they think it's hilarious, which is really cool that I can do both, right? And like even in like they'll say like, it's so funny, Peter, that these people think, you know, these negative things about you. They're like, you're like, so, I mean, I have such amazing relationships with my clients, and I know you're watching right now and I love you guys and they know that. I today do not take tons and tons of clients. Thankfully, I'm not in a position where I have to. So I very much pick and choose who I work with. And I also think it's important that if somebody comes into my office and I'm not a good fit for them, that I help them find somebody that they will feel more comfortable with, if that makes sense. So anyway, I got sober in 1994. The following year, in 1995, I started working in a treatment program. And I started working the same treatment program that I got sober in. I actually started volunteering there first. And then I got a part-time job as a tech on the adolescent unit. And I was working with 12 to 18-year-olds that had drug and alcohol problems. Some of them were court-ordered there. Some of them weren't, blah, blah, blah. I was a tech for about 2 years, and then I became supervisor of the techs. I was over all of the techs in the unit. while somebody went on maternity leave. And I was like, okay, my undergraduate degree is in English. So I was like, I'm not really sure that this is like what, I thought I'd end up being like a writer, which isn't that funny that today I am. But I didn't really ever, if you had told me 25 years ago when I was in high school, you will end up one day being a counselor for adolescent teenagers in a treatment program, I would have been like, never in a million years, right? No way. So anyway, but my whole attitude was I had never really had a counselor or a therapist in my life that got on my level and really tried to see things from my point of view. And that's who I wanted to be for other teenagers. And so, I started working, I worked there for 2 years, and then I applied to the Master's in Social Work program. Both of my degrees are from Indiana University. And I applied for the Master's in Social Work program. I really honestly did not think I would get in because my degree was in English. I used all through college, so my grades were not good. But I had to write this extensive essay, and I just kind of put it all out there. I just kind of was like, I talked about my recovery. I talked about being gay. I talked about being, my dad. I talked about my mom. I talked about everything in my life on that because that's who I am. I share my honesty with the world. And I got into the program, so, which was amazing. Like, and it was the coolest program because I had no social work background. And the reason I chose a social work degree instead of like a psychology degree or a counseling degree or those kinds of things is like, all those degrees are great. Life coaching did not exist at that point. But the reason I chose that degree was because I really wanted to, like a mobile degree. Like if I wanted to ever work outside of like, the addiction field, I wanted to be able to go into other things. So anyway, while I was getting my master's degree there, the person that I had taken her position while she was on maternity leave came back. And so at that point, my job became with the treatment program that I worked with the Department of Corrections for Indiana. Okay. And what we would do is we would go to probation departments, jails, prisons, girls' school, boys' school, and we would do assessments and evaluations on those kids. And I became the adolescent assessment counselor for the state of Indiana. So I went all over the state of Indiana to probation departments, detention centers, jails, whatever. And I worked closely with the Department of Corrections, probation officers, parole officers, all of those people, and doing those assessments, bringing them back and making an evaluation for the treatment program on what we suggested. And then like a lot of those kids then would come out of like boys school, girls school, probation, detention. They would come and they would be court ordered to our treatment program that would be part of their sentencing. So anyway, I did that. And then when I got my master's degree, I became one of the inpatient counselors. And so what that meant was that I had a caseload of 12 kids, 12 to 15 kids. I mean, sometimes I had 6, sometimes I had 12, sometimes I had 15. It just depended. No more ever than 15. If we had a lot of kids, we always like pulled in a third counselor. So I did that. What that meant was I did group therapy on a daily basis. Somebody talked about that got honest and said I was their counselor and made a whole video about it, how they remember me being their group, doing group counseling for them. I did group counseling on a daily basis. I did individual counseling with them. I did education. I did family counseling, family individual counseling. I did family group counseling, group therapy. I did staffing clinically on like a weekly basis on all of our patients, outpatient and inpatients. Down the road, I also became the clinical team leader at one point. And then I helped build what was at that point an independent living program for adolescents that were going to stay there long term. So like basically a halfway house for adolescents. Yeah, and I also was part of a team that put together a recovery high school. And I loved all of it. It was absolutely amazing to be part of that organization. And I still love that organization today. About 3 years before I left, I started my private practice. And I just kind of started it word of mouth. And at that point, I had a supervisor that I oversaw, and I really thought that I would go in and get become a licensed clinical social worker and all that kind of stuff and see very technical cases and be in courtrooms and things like that. And what started happening was I was getting a lot of cases at that time where they were court ordered through attorneys that I knew, and I was working with a lot of clients that really did not want to be in practice or did not really want to be in counseling. And you know, I was in treatment working with kids that were court-ordered treatment, and, you know, 80% of them didn't want to be there, and I understand that. And, you know, then I was working in my private practice with all of these, you know, people that were court-ordered to have to come to counseling, and they weren't making changes, and they didn't really want to be there. And so eventually what I did was, when I left working for that treatment program, and I left for 2 reasons. I left just because it was my time. I had been there for 13 years. I had a great experience working there, but it was time for me to move on. And my practice had been open for 3 or 4 years at that point, and honestly, it just was the wise choice for me to make. And so I did that. And then I also consciously made a decision to change over to life coaching at that point. And the reason why was because it's interesting what people hear by life coaching versus what they hear as like psychotherapy or counseling. And, you know, it's like a lot of people see it as very technical, very analytical, and even though I had that clinical background, that wasn't what I wanted to do with anymore. I wanted to work with people that, like, we would set goals, and we would help them accomplish their goals, and I would help them get to that point. I wanted to work with people that, you know, wanted to dream big or work through certain issues in their life. But like, for a lot of those deeper issues, I would refer out, because I no longer wanted to do that. Like, I didn't want to be a check-in where somebody would come into me and I'd be like, how many meetings have you been to this week? You know, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what happened to you when you were 4 years old. And all of that is important, and all of that is good, but there became a point when, for me, professionally, that wasn't what I wanted to do anymore, because I had done it for 13, 15 years of my life, 50 to 80 hours a week. And a lot of people are like, why, you don't work a lot anymore? And I'm like, no, that was part of my plan, was I was going to work 50 to 80 hours a week for 20 years, and then baby out. So, and then very decisively pick the people that I work with, because I really want to work with people that really, really want to come and see me, that really want to accomplish things in their life. And so that's how I did that. You know, work towards life coaching certification, and just started working with those clients that really wanted to work in that field with me. You know, I have many, it's interesting. I have, like, when people are like, well, what areas, my career has gone so crazy. I mean, even at one time, you guys are going to find this so interesting. I was a licensed acupuncturist at the treatment program that I worked in, doing AcuDetox. Okay. So, can you believe me as an acupuncturist? But it's true. I did the 5 points in the ear for AcuDetox. I don't do that anymore. I'm not licensed for that anymore. I don't have any desire to be an acupuncturist, but I totally believe in all of that. I've seen people's lives changed by it. And I have many, many certifications for many, many different things. And that's a part of my life that I don't really talk about on camera, because I just think, like, there's a need for me to protect part of that, you know, like, I would never bring my clients on camera, even if they were like, hey, I'd be on camera. I would never do that. You know, a lot of people have said things to me like, well, would you work with Trisha Paytas? No, that's not professional. I wouldn't work with a friend of mine. I would refer her to somebody, but I wouldn't work with her. But it is a wonderful field. And for anybody that's choosing to go into it, I mean, there's so many different areas that you can go into today, you know, I mean, even just in the area of life coaching, there's recovery management, there's passion coaching, you know, there's couples coaching, there's business coaching, financial coaching. There's so many different areas of coaching that you can go into today. And really, you know, like, as a counselor, you know, when you go in and, like, if you go into social work or you go into counseling, you can get, you know, counseling education, you know, where you're working as a school guidance counselor, which, you know, my practicums, it's interesting because when I did my internships in my practicums, one of them was in elementary school. I was a school social worker for a year. Elementary school social worker in the inner city. Can you believe it? Loved every minute of it. And, then I also did a year in a treatment program where I worked in the assessment department. I worked with the women, I worked with the men, I worked with the kids, I worked with everybody during that internship, and I loved it. You know, there's so many different areas that you can go into in helping people. There's actually, like, a great book out there, and it's called, like, 1,000 Jobs in the Service Industry, and not, like, talking about, like, you know, like, serving, but, like, service industry, like, as far as, like, social work. That's not what it's called. It's called, like, 1,000 Jobs in Social Work or something like that. And there's so many different jobs out there as a social worker, you know, like, I mean, you could be a grant proposal writer, you could be somebody that, you know, like, I don't know, works in a community center, which I really thought about doing for a long time. You know, there's a gay youth group in Indianapolis. I really wanted to work with them for a long time. You know, I think there's a lot of different things that you can do. I really have, like, an area for me that I know that I would not be good in is working with the elderly, but I have friends of mine that work in there and they love it. And I think that's the thing, is that you have to know what you're good at and what you work with. I don't, like, when I started my practice, I typically worked with mostly adolescents, but I don't today. Like, I work probably, like, I don't have any adolescents right now that I see. The youngest client that I have is 18 years old. Everybody else is an adult. You know, everybody else is, I have clients into their 60s and early 70s. And yeah, I feel blessed to have every single one of them. I learned so much from these people. You know, I learned so much from my clients and our relationships and our friendships that we've made through the years. It's just really miraculous. It's a wonderful field to work in. You know, and I've never really rethought it. Through the years, I've rethought, like, okay, where do I want to go next? What do I want to do next, you know? Riley Hospital is in Indiana, and for a long time I really wanted to work at Riley Hospital for children. And then I had a friend that went and did that, and she said, Peter, it's a lot. It's very taxing. You have to really, like, be in it, you know? And I thought, oh, I don't know that I'm not good at clocking out at the end of the day, right? I mean, if clients call me at 2 o'clock in the morning because a crisis happens, I take the call. I've always been like that, and I love that. I love doing that, you know? Like, when I worked at Fairbanks, I had a pager remember pagers, for many, many years, and I was kind of, like, addicted a little bit to, like, that working in that, like, like, I loved that. Every day was different. I'm not the kind of person that could sit down in front of a computer and work every day in front of a computer, which is funny because I'm a YouTuber now, but, like, not as, like, a career, really. So I was never somebody that could do that. So, like, I had to be in an environment where every day that I would come in, it would be completely different, right? And listen, working in direct care in a treatment facility, every day is different. You have no idea what you're walking into. And it's very much problem solving, but it's very much getting on their level and building relationships with those people and really, like, helping them out. And what's really cool is, you know, 20 years later, I have so many clients of mine that, like, reach out to me on a daily basis that I had 20 years ago, and they're like, you probably don't remember me. I'm like, oh my God, I totally remember you. And they're like, well, my son is now, I'm like, your son, oh my God, I feel so old. But I love it. It's awesome. You know, it's awesome to be part of somebody's life and to, you know, impact somebody in a positive way and know that you're just part of that journey. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, and I've seen a lot of tragedy. I've probably gone to 200 funerals in my career of overdoses and deaths related to addiction. It breaks my heart. A lot of teenagers. And, you know, I've seen a lot of families break apart. I've seen social services, come in and just take families apart. And it's just sad. You see a lot of sadness as well. But the overwhelming happiness that even if you impact just one person in your entire career, it makes it all different. And, you know, I have a counselor that she said some things to me I needed to hear when I was in treatment. She's a very good friend of mine still to this day. And so, you know, like, I'm so thankful for her. She saved my life, and I love her for that. And, you know, I can just give back is all I can do. So I hope that explains it a little bit. I'll read my next post. I'll read my blog post maybe in my next video. I love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.